We had created our various sketches and done our extrusion, so we've got the basic shape. What I wanted to do, just before I show you the next set of features where we're going to hollow these out, I just wanted to get your attention down to the bottom here. Some of you I know are familiar with this, some of you maybe not so much. This is our timeline, and this is showing us what we've done on our model, okay? So it goes in order. Obviously the first one is on the left-hand side, and the first thing I did was to draw my sketch, and you can see that if I hover over that, my sketch shows or appears on the model. Then I did an extrusion, and you can see it's now highlighting that or graying it. Then I did another sketch, another sketch, another sketch, and an extrusion, okay? Well, you may say, so what? Okay, I can remember what I did. Well, this is where you can come to make changes to things. So if I made a mistake, and let's say I accidentally made this one too short or too long, I can come in and find which of those it is. So here, I can right click and I can edit the feature. I could delete the feature altogether if I wanted, if I'd made an extrusion in the wrong place or something like that. But I wanted to edit it, and that would allow me to come in and either maybe change the distance or maybe change what's known as the operation, which is where it goes from being a join to a new body. So the difference is that it tends to default to join, but you might specifically want it to be considered as a separate body or a separate entity, maybe because it's a different material, for example, in which case you might not want it all sort of fused to that one thing. Obviously in this case that doesn't apply, so I'm going to leave it at join. And my original measurement was actually okay anyway, so I'm going to set that back to 30, okay? But that's a really useful thing to understand about Fusion, is that you can come in and you can make changes. I could even go in and I could go back and edit that sketch. Maybe I got that the wrong size, and so on, okay? So that's our timeline, all right? Really, really handy thing to understand. So let's go ahead and do our other sketches that will let us extrude inwards to cut material away. So just as we did before, this is going to involve creating some new sketches. So I'm going to select that surface and press O on my keyboard. And this time, when I do the offset, this is actually thicker, okay? So I want this to be -3. Right, so it's more than that first offset that we did for the original extrusions, and press enter. Then you see again, what have we done? Same as before, we've got another sketch up here. I'm going to finish that sketch. I'm going to click on this one and use my offset tool, select the outer edge and come in again, -3, and stop that sketch. The reason I need to stop the sketch is because if I don't do an extrusion and I don't stop the sketch, it's just only going to let me draw on that surface. So that's why I'm selecting the new surface here before pressing O again. Then I'm selecting the outside edge, dragging in -3 and pressing OK. Now, this time, let's say we're just going to go ahead and extrude that straight away. Well, in that case, I don't need to do my finished sketch. I'm just going to press E on there, and I'm going to click and come this way. So this time, I'm going back -50. So I'm going all the way back, almost out. If I turn that using my view cube, it's always a useful thing. You can see just how far that really wants to go. And in fact, looking at that, that's not strictly true. That extrusion should line up with this. So I'm just doing a bit of mental maths. Would that be 50.5 then? Yes, it would. Okay, so let's do 50.5. So that's using your view cube to move the view around and see what an extrusion is doing is another really useful thing to get in the habit of doing, okay? So from that angle, it might, it's a bit hard to judge just what that distance is. But if I turn it to that view, then I can see very clearly that that red area, which you can see this time, it's assuming I want to do a cut, okay, because I'm extruding into a body. If I move that out the way, and I pull this the other way, you'll see it goes from red to grey, and now it thinks I'm doing a join again. Okay, so it's kind of trying to preempt and guess what you're doing. Anyway, so we said minus 50.5, press enter. And then we're going to press extrude and do this one, and that's also going to be minus 50.5 and enter. And then we're going to do an extrude on this one, and see each time, notice what's happening as I go through them. I've obviously done them in a different order this time. As I do them, it's turning off the sketch because it thinks, well, you don't probably want to see that anymore. And generally speaking, it's right, but sometimes I do want to see it. And so you just hop back over here and manually switch it back on. Okay, so that's our 3 extrusions. Let's go ahead and do a save before we forget. And just in case anything happens to our laptop or Fusion crashes or something like that. So if we now look inside that, we can see right down into where those extrusions meet, okay, into the corner of things. So that's a pretty accurate representation of what we've got, except at the moment it's all very, very square. And the way this little corner works is these pieces slide inside a tube. And so really, really hard to do that with these very, very angular corners. So the last thing we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and radius these off. So I'm going to select a number of surfaces. I'm using my fillet tool here, and you can use a shortcut for that, which is just to press F on your keyboard. And then I'm going to select these edges here. So all the ones that I can see on the front until they're all highlighted blue. And then I'm going to just flick it around so that I can see the back there. And I'm going to do those ones as well. The only corners that are kind of left square are the ones on the original cube. So I'm going to go and radius that and that and that. Okay, that should be all of them. The radius is not huge. Let's try 1 millimeter. That looks about right. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK on that. So if we now look at what's happened to those surfaces, when we zoom in, we can see that this has now got a nice round to it. Okay, so it's going to fit inside something else more easily. We talked about our timeline earlier. If we get that fillet the wrong size, or we look at it and think, actually, do you know what? That needs to be a little bit bigger. Then I'm going to press Escape to get out of my orbit tool. I can edit the feature, and if I think that in actual fact that needs to be 1.5, I can change it to 1.5 or 1.25 or whatever on earth is the size you actually want. Okay, I'm going to go for 1.5. Generally speaking, the bigger the curve, the easier that is going to be to fit into things. The only other thing that is not radiused and should be is the top edges here. So for these, rather than clicking all the way around them, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press my fillet tool, and I'm just going to hover over until you see that whole surface go white, okay, or grey. And then I'm going to grab that surface and do the same, and then I'm going to grab that surface and do the same. Now, this time, when you go to put the size on, I'm going to type in 1 and see if it will let me do that. Sometimes you will get a little error message, and that tends to be if you're trying to put on a curve which is physically too big to fit on that space. So if, for example, I put in 5 here, okay, it's going to just reject that. It's not going to do it. And here I am getting an error message. It could not be created at the requested size. And it was saying there, try adjusting the size. The reason it can't put a 5 radius on there or 5 curve is because that's not even 5 thick, of course. So let's go back and go to our 1 and see if it's happy doing that. Seems to be. So we can go ahead and click OK on that. And if I just click my home view, now we've got a really accurate model of that connecting piece. What we're going to do ultimately is we're going to draw up some tubes, and then you're going to have effectively virtual well, I'm not sure you guys would know Meccano, but you'd certainly know Lego. You're going to have a virtual construction kit, and we're going to just put some pieces of tube onto this and create a structure. Okay. The final thing, I'm just going to do a quick Command S, save my work. Final thing is this, of course, is a rigid black plastic material. So I'm going to just press A on my keyboard to bring up my appearance tools. Mine's collapsed for some reason, I don't know why, so let's just uncollapse it. I've obviously been on plastic here last time. It's not actually a gloss, it's a slightly sort of semi-gloss. So I might even pick a matte and slide that onto there. And then with that color up here, obviously it's not actually blue. I mean, it could be, but it's not. So I can double click on that. And within this, I can now choose a color that's a more accurate reflection of what I've actually got, which is black. So I'm going to click that, I'm going to close that, and that is going to be my completed model. Okay, so quick Command S, click OK, and fantastic. We have got a piece. Now that piece can be duplicated many times, but as it is, that is absolutely right and a perfect model. So good job, well done.